Hello, everyone. My name is Melvin Leong, and I'm thrilled to have you all here today. And we are going to dive into some exciting trends in horticulture lighting. By the end of this webinar, I hope you'll walk away with valuable insights into the lighting market, current trends in horticulture, and some best practices from lighting industry players. Right, let's go on to the next slide. Yes, I'm pleased to introduce my teammate, Dennis, our senior industry analyst. Dennis and I have worked together on numerous projects, and I'm happy that he is sharing his expertise today. And we also have a special guest with us today. His name is Sudhir Patil, MD and founder of Leap Info Systems. And I believe Sudhir and Dennis have met in an expo before this, and Sudhir's innovative approach in the lighting industry has truly impressed us, and that's why he's here with us today. Thank you for your participation, Sudhir, and yes, we'll get back to you in a short while. So before we jump into the discussion, Dennis will kick things off by providing some context. He'll be sharing insights on the evolution of horticulture lighting, the challenges we are facing, and highlight some key players in the industry. I'm sure you'll find these insights valuable, so please go on, Dennis. All yours.
Thank you, Melvin. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone. So today we'll be focusing on three different aspects, rather more important aspects of why horticulture lighting is important in today's day and age. Before we set off to that discussion, we try and see how horticulture lighting has evolved over the years, what are the present challenges, and how are companies innovating to address these challenges in the space. Lighting, as we all know, has evolved by leaps and bounds over the years, and so has horticulture lighting. What started off as artificial light sources for plant growth using incandescent bulbs has transitioned towards a more effective or a higher light output related high-intensity discharge lamps in the pre-2000s era. And from there, we had a transition towards LED lighting, and that's where the entire ecosystem for vertical farming and greenhouses and indoor farming totally changed, is what I believe. This was majorly related to the energy efficiency, the heat output that was generated by incandescent or fluorescent light sources earlier, which were combated by the LED lighting industry, LED lighting products. And moreover, this LED lighting allowed growers of different crops or vegetables to tune the lighting according to their needs and necessities. From LED lighting, we have now transitioned presently towards smart lighting and controls, which is not only just illuminating the space or lighting that particular indoor farming area, but rather controlling it according to the needs of the growers, according to the plant stage, or even according to the external weather conditions, so as to achieve better crop output, better crop quality, etc. And the future for horticulture lighting is about how lighting can be integrated with other sources within a building or in a vertical farming such as your HVAC or climate control, or how can it be connected to the grid so as to attend to demand response programs, etc. Moving on to the present challenges with horticulture lighting. There has been a few challenges that has been plaguing the industry for a long time, one of which is high initial costs or return on investment concerns. It still continues to hamper the growth potential of horticulture lighting. The second one is energy consumption and operational cost. We've talked about how LEDs are starting to replace, but still a large chunk of vertical farmers or growers, still they use high intensity discharge lamps or fluorescent lamps for their plant growth. which means that they have to spend more on energy and operational costs with more heat output, lesser lifespan of this light sources, etc. The third challenge is about spectrum optimization and crop specific tuning, and this has to again do with uh, the high intensity discharge or the fluorescent light sources, which are not easily tunable or cannot be optimized to the spectrum that caters to the plant growth, which we'll discuss later on in this webinar. The fourth important point is around heat management and HVAC integration. Uh, though the indoor farming is all about lighting, plant growth, etc., there is also heat management that becomes a primary source of concern when you use light sources that dissipate more heat. With LEDs, the chance of heat dissipation is very little, but there is also another challenge that we need to combat, which is ventilation within a vertical farm. This is again a challenge for someone who's looking to set up a vertical farm and grow crops inside a building or a container or whatever area that they choose to. Market fragmentation and education gap. Education gap is something that we can address all of the previous challenges to again. There is a perception that ROI is less. There is high initial cost. There are other values that come into play. Let's say the business models that come into play. Uh, Market is quite fragmented in a way. You could say that it is more concentrated towards the developed countries such as Europe or North America, while APAC, Europe, and rest of the world are picking up the horticulture lighting demand. It's not that it is not happening, but it is happening at a very low or lesser level. Finally, supply chain and component shortages. This has been an ongoing challenge for a last 4 or 5 years, ever since COVID disrupted the entire supply chain scale. Availability of components, semiconductors used to prepare these lighting components, uh, availability of raw materials such as aluminum, uh, which go into manufacturing the housing of the lighting equipments. All of this present a great challenge for horticulture lighting. What are companies doing to compound this? So not every challenge has to be addressed by one company, but companies identify critical challenges that plague their customers or the consumers and try and address that. For example, we take look at three companies which we believe are revolutionizing or at the forefront of innovation. We'll start off with Solemn Technologies. We'll go in depth later, but their Sun as a platform solution is a new innovative offering which optimizes the light based on the crop's growth stage. It also takes into it takes into the external climatic conditions. What are the ongoing energy costs? How can it be reduced? Let's say if there's a peak charge for electricity during 8 to 10 a.m. or 8 to 4 p.m., then it accordingly it allocates the time for the crop to be illuminated during nighttime when the fares are low, etc. Second, we see Heliospectra, again a Europe-based company, which allows customers to optimize the spectrum based on the crop's needs. A part of it, it started off as a manual uh, fine-tuning of spectrum, but then it has grown to incorporate AI-driven controls in order to fine-tune the lighting controls and the lighting conditions to ensure optimal plant growth. Finally, we also have Agnetics. It's a US-based company. They look to address the heating solution for the lighting systems. So what they have done is they've introduced a pipe that is placed very close to the LED light sources, and there is a water flow through the pipe, which reduces the heat, the whatever the minimal heat even it is generated by the LED sources, which means that the dependence on HVAC systems, additional HVAC systems to ensure optimal conditions within the space, ensuring proper ventilation or proper heat sources is taken care by these systems. So these are some of the examples that we've seen, but over the course of the discussion, we'll also be able to highlight what other companies are doing and what needs to be done in order to stay competitive and relevant in this market. Over to you, Melvin.
So Thank you, Dennis, once again. And joining us today for the discussion is Sudhir Patel from Leap Info Systems. And I think we can just get started with the questions here. I'm excited to be, to be speaking with you today. And thank you for joining us, Sudhir. And LED, lights, or what we call in horticulture, LED grow lights in horticulture industry, have really changed the game in, horticulture itself. So one of the biggest perks is their incredible lifespan. Like any LED lamps, they can last up to 50,000 hours or even more. And imagine not having to worry about replacing lights that frequently. And this also means lower maintenance costs, consistent light quality, and fewer disruptions in the growing cycle. Now, Sudhir, can you please elaborate a little the benefits or any other perks of having LED grow lights that last longer in horticulture? I'm not sure if you're well versed in horticulture, but it doesn't matter. But maybe you can share your perspective about LED lights, having the long lifespan, and how does this benefit lighting companies if the replacements are going to be rare? We can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me, and that too for a very interesting and very much needed topic for this discussion. So thank you once again, Melvin and Dennis, for having me here. Coming to your question, and I would like to quote or refer to one of the points from Dennis' presentation where he used that slide and that talked about the use of lighting or lights in horticulture started somewhere in 1980, right? And what it proves that the application of lights, or I would say artificial lights in a plant growth, is not new to us, right? It has been there, right? So I guess, and I think we all are aware about the benefits part of it, but to specifically how the LED has changed this paradigm is very interesting. And I think, Melvin, you did mention about very important aspect of it is the lifespan of the LEDs, right? So if you refer to the earlier, and again, Dennis did mention that earlier there was incandescent lamps used for horticulture or plant growth, right? And for such kind of a lamps, the maximum time span or a lifespan was around 10,000 to 20,000 hours. While as if you compare with LED, it has reached to almost 50,000 to 70,000. So one immediate benefit I personally see is the cost saving. And now this cost saving is not only in a direct cost, right? Because we are able to use the same light source for a longer period of time. But more importantly, the disruption which occurs because we need to replace the lamp, and then that impacts the growth of the plant. As these are intangible one, but I think that needs to be taken into consideration because that's a sizable. Predominantly, when we are aware that there is a different genesis which is available or which is required for any plant to grow, right? So one thing as a direct answer and response to your question is specifically cost saving. But apart from cost saving, another point I would like to highlight specifically in the context of a LED, right? We all know LED as a technology extremely flexible, right? As against the previous light sources. And this flexibility and with the advent of the technologies, again, one point I can quote here or maybe refer here is a optimization of the spectrum, which was not possible with other light sources, right? And how it can help us, because we know the plant growth is a dynamic, and dynamic in a context of the climatic conditions we have, right? And again, we know that the climatic conditions are not static here, right? In terms of the intensity, in terms of the temperature and all the other parameters which any plant would require to grow, right? So the flexibility of LED technology giving us as a human being a control to manage and the tune the way we want, right, is the biggest benefit in my opinion when it comes to using LED grow or similar type of light source. Apart from that, I'm sure like there are many. One important thing which we should not forget today is energy efficiency, right, and sustainability. right? Again, simple maths. Probably, not probably, in fact, it's a fact that we used to require higher energy load to run our incandescent or metal halide kind of light sources as against the LEDs. More importantly, reduced downtime is another thing I can quote. And all put together, one of the important point, again, I would like to raise purposely is ROI, right? Because there have been discussions saying that there is no ROI, right? My whole point here is that when we are really looking at the ROI, it's not only the one aspect or one parameter needs to be considered, right? So it is a combination of multiple aspects. One, of course, the time span. Second, how the productivity of the plant growth, not in terms of just quantity, but also the quality, right? So all put together, if you look at it, I think usage of LED and that too with the increased lifespan is certainly helping. I'm not saying going to help. It is already helping to the horticulture and the growth of plants.
Okay. I think that's a very good insight, Sudhir. And moving forward, I would just like to understand more about the full the LED function in terms of the full spectrum LED. So I think maybe Dennis will be able to answer my question on this, because I believe that full spectrum LEDs they are amazing in theory, because they actually mimic natural sunlight, and this means they give plants all the wavelengths they need to grow at their best, and it can even boost the nutritional quality of crops. And this also means we can grow plants indoors all year long, no matter what the weather's like outside. I think that's really great to have this LED full spectrum LED. So maybe you can explain a little bit more, Dennis, the technical aspect here, how the full spectrum LEDs mimic natural sunlight, in this sense, and what does it mean for the plant health? Because if I can I just use a household LED lamp, which obviously doesn't work, or are there any particular crops that would benefit from this?
Yeah, okay. To start off, rightly pointed out, the full spectrum LEDs that are the key trend in horticulture lighting today. And what is full spectrum is basically we need to go back a bit, try understand what sunlight does to plants. So sunlight is usually in the range of 380 to 700, 750 nanometer wavelength. So it has various light wavelengths starting from your blue, which goes on to red. Obviously, there are ultra UV rays as well, infrared, which are beyond that 380 nanometer and 700 nanometer wavelength. So what does the LED lights do is replicate the same wavelength that is coming from the sunlight. And they do that by allowing us to monitor, or let's say tune from 400 to 700 nanometer, which is more specific for plant growth. So let me tone it down a bit and say, if a crop needs sunlight for, let's say, the maximum sunlight it could get is 8 hours a day or 7 hours a day. That is considering that it is in a tropical country. But consider Europe or North America, where the duration of sunlight is pretty low, which means that your plants are directly impacted by the lack of sunlight, which means your plant growth might be stunted, or you might lose out on actual enriching factors such as vitamins or minerals within the fruit or the plant. So what does LED light do is mimic the wavelength exactly to that of the sunlight. So you could tune the wavelengths based on the stage of the plant growth. Let's say when it's at the starting phase, that's when you might need a lower wavelength, let's say the 400 nanometer wavelength around the blue lighting, which helps in the plant growth or optimizing plant growth. But as it progresses at different stages, let's say the budding stage or the flowering stage, and then the final crop stage, you might need to change your spectrum to the far red 700 nanometer lights, which enhances the absorption of chlorophyll. which means that your leaves will become more enriched in essential minerals and vitamins. What it also does is, LEDs, what it also allows us to do is go into that ultraviolet range. They are directly harmful to the plant growth, but if exposed to UV rays at particular wavelengths, or let's say for a particular time period, they could act as an insecticide or a pesticide for an indoor crop environment as well. So LEDs offer such a wide range of prospects for growers, and this is what we call as a full spectrum or a broad spectrum LED light. So I think for an example, if I have to say, researchers have found out that tomatoes grown indoors, if they are exposed to, let's say, 12 to 16 hours a day of LED lights with proper spectrum, they get twice the amount of vitamin C that is generated from a crop grown in natural light. So that is the benefit here that we are looking at. Tangible benefits that can really impact consumers and end users who want healthy food, access to healthy food, and obviously result in better return on investment for growers as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Dennis. I mean, I have an additional question here. So this is not really related to what you have said, Dennis, because it just suddenly came to me. So horticulture, the crops that that is produced, right? Are there any safety concerns? Because they're not naturally grown outdoors. It's all done indoors artificially. With all these LED lights. So, any safety concerns have you heard or?
So usually there are no safety concerns, because at the end of the day, plant is grown with the soil that is also seen outside. There are also different stages where they grow hydroponics. There are different ways to grow the plant, but eventually what on the material or the soil that is used is not going to differ. And you rightly pointed out in an earlier question when you're saying that LEDs are mimicking the sunlight. So we are not replacing anything, or this does not have any direct impact on plant. And moreover, we do also have proper ventilation done. And in going a step ahead and saying, these lights also go through tests and proper certifications, like, I think Sudhir can also chip in on this, Design Light Consortium or the UL certifications. All of these are mandatory for such LED lights, which are used in horticulture lighting as well. So I don't think there is any safety concern, because regulatorily strong countries such as Europe and North America have a wider adoption of this, and it would not be possible if there was any safety concern.
Okay, so anyway, let's move on. I have noticed about this one particular trend, and I find this very interesting. So the integrating HVAC systems with advanced horticulture lighting, I think that's a really smart move for optimizing indoor growing environments, because it's not just lighting, but you're integrating the lighting systems with HVAC systems, and when you sync HVAC with lighting, you can keep the temperature and humidity levels just right, which is super important for plant health and productivity. And you don't have to worry about overheating, right, for example. So it's all about creating the perfect environment for plants to thrive. So my questions are, what are the costs and implications involved when you integrate HVAC systems with advanced horticulture lighting solutions, and along the lines of what kind of opportunities does it create? I think both of you can chip in. Maybe Sudhir can answer first.
Yeah. In fact, Melvin, I think this is very well relevant when we are talking about using artificial ways and means to grow plant, right? And we started with lights. But if you look at what all the prerequisites or the requirements for any plant to grow, it's not just light, right? I would say I'll sum up it in a right conducive climatic conditions, in which light is one of the components. No doubt it is very important, right? But along with that, it also requires a a right kind of a temperature and humidity, as you rightly mentioned, right? It requires a right quantity and quality of the irrigation, that is water, right? So in that context, in fact, I will not only stop at just integrating HVAC. I would go furthermore, saying that we should have, or we should leverage today technology to create that right ideal conducive environment for plant to grow, right? So right from lighting, then your HVAC, right, to ensure that we have right humidity and temperature. More importantly, irrigation, right, monitoring the temperature and humidity, and then accordingly adjusting either irrigation or maybe any other components which is required. So my whole point I'm trying to put forward is that the interoperability between different systems which are required for a plant to grow is very required, right? And in this case, reason why is because we know the controls or the precision control, I would say, are very important for plant conditions. I'm sure like each one of us might have experienced this even in our small gardens at the home, right? If we water the plant maybe a little more, it has immediate impact on it. And hence, right, the precision controls matters a lot. And good thing is that in today's scenario, there are technologies available which can work in a tandem, right? So we cannot have a solution that works for lighting, then we have a different thing or different system work in HVAC, maybe a different in irrigation. I think all these systems has to be interoperable, communicating with each other, exchanging data, and taking decision at runtime if they need to adjust or tune, right? How it will impact is obviously we will be able to save water, right? Because we now will be only able to use, or we will only be using water as required, right? This will definitely improve positively into crop health and yield. More importantly, the resources and the cost. Ultimately, everything boils down to the cost, isn't it? Right? And in that context, when we are talking about ROI, if we optimally use these resources, which is going to have a positive impact on reducing the cost. If you reduce the cost, I'm sure like we will have an early ROI on the investment which you otherwise required for all this technological solution. So my take is that I think we should look at it from an interoperability perspective. And my last point here, which is very critical, and I think in today's world of AI, we should not forget it. In the process of this, I think there is opportunity to capture a lot of data points, right? And those data points can further be used to create a predictive models, right? To be studied and then further applied to grow the productivity of particular type of plants, right? So I think all this will give us an opportunity to collect a lot of data, use that data and insights for the predictive models, which will enhance the growth of our plants. So yes, I think it is very important for all of us to understand how interoperability between all the parameters are important.
Right. I think this is something that is really relevant to what Leap Info systems are doing. So, but I'll get back to you on that, Sudhir. And but so Dennis, do you have any response to my earlier question?
Yeah. Just to build upon what Sudhir rightly pointed out, horticulture or indoor farming is also known as controlled environment agriculture. So which means that we are trying to control as many factors as possible. If the traditional farming, everything relies upon nature, right from your sunlight to rainfall. Yes, obviously you could pasture your fields, you could draw water, etc. But most of the environmental conditions is not under your control. By integrating HVAC and lighting, and like Sudhir already mentioned, all other components within the vertical farming, what you'd be able to do is totally take out the external climatic conditions out of the equation. For example, a country which relies a lot on leafy vegetables or spinach or something, which is usually seen or grown during the winter season, but it also needs to have some sort of sunlight for chlorophyll to get that color, to get that nutrients, etc. Within a controlled environment, through lighting and HVAC and other components, you'll be able to ensure that you don't have to rely on external climatic conditions, but rather just focus on improving your productivity. You could just ensure there is round the year productivity even for certain crops which are supposed to come out only in a certain period. Crops no more have to be seasonal. They can be available round the year just by integrating HVAC and integrating it with lighting, etc. So I think this is a very valuable aspect which we need to see, because the growing population means that there is a growing demand for food consumption as well. And we cannot limit people what to eat and what to choose. They demand good food, they demand healthy food, and they demand it round the year. So I think this integration would enable us to provide food around the year at a good quality.
I think that's I agree to that, Dennis, and definitely, this is something that investors or industry participants in the lighting industry and horticulture industry need to understand. The importance of integrating HVAC and LED lighting solutions. Although it could be a little costly at first, but I think the ROI is definitely worth it. So now let's talk a bit about Sudhir's company. Now we know, Leap Info Systems is all about smart lighting controls and building automation and so on. And they use IoT and open standards to create flexible and scalable solutions, and not tying to any one vendor or system integrator. So of course, this means that overall building management can become more efficient and intelligent also. So Sudhir, so what got you inspired to start Leap Info Systems, and what was your original vision for the company? And what future trends do you see coming up in the world of lighting and building management systems?
Well, if I go back in the history, when I was initially thinking about those days, the name Leap was certainly not there, right? But it was just an idea. I had been always fascinated about controls and automation. And fortunately, that was a time when IoT, that is the Internet of Things, was really coming up, or at least there was lots of talks happening around, right? So even that that caught my attention, right? And I started thinking how I can leverage this trend in a particular area. And we chose buildings and facilities. But why we chose buildings and facilities? Because what we observed that the controls, automation, lighting controls for that matter, or building management is not new, right? It existed since ages. But there was a very predominant or a prominent challenge we heard from the customers, that there is a lot of dependencies on vendors, right? And it's like a lock and key. If I am supposed to implement a building management system, right? So I have a lock, but the key is with the vendor, right? So even though I am investing, I am paying a money, I'm at the mercy of somebody to support me. And we wanted to solve this problem by democratizing this such kind of a systems by bringing openness, right? I think we all are beneficiaries of openness today. A simple example of a USB, right? I think this is a perfect example what openness can help all of us. A single USB of any make and model work with any make and model of mobile phones, laptops, and whatnot, right? Then what we thought, that why not this in our buildings and facilities? So that prompted us to start thinking. And then after evolving, we thought that, okay, let's not create yet another control system in a lighting. Can we think of a real-time problem? And problem is a convergence. Today, there are different systems working in silos. Can we bring them together? There are possibilities and ways in which they are integrated today, right? But there is a specific problem. So the way I see Leap is not actually bringing any product to the market. Leap has a unique approach towards getting this system together, right? So convergence is what we always propagate, saying that we are here to help convergence in the building, right? Which helps the building owners to bring a flexibility by having the openness, and no doubt that helps them to scale up their buildings and facilities as required.
So do you see, like like interoperability or interoperations of protocols are a challenge right now?
I'm not saying it is challenged now. In fact, they are very well interoperable. I'm saying the way they are interoperating is a challenge, right? Because you need somebody else to act as a translator, right? Who understand one side and then other side, right? So that's the challenge I'm saying, because that's where the dependency comes in.
I see. So besides being a homegrown company in India, are you operating elsewhere in the region?
Yeah, not that we have offices or we are operating as such, but we have customers globally. In fact, even before maybe actively selling our products and solutions in India, we were working with European countries and US, of course. And then later on, even India caught up with the IoT controls automation. And obviously, we also started serving India as a market.
Thank you for your answer, Sudhir. That's very inspiring story or information that you have shared with us just now. And okay, so moving back to horticulture, Dennis, in Europe and North America, we see that that horticulture itself is super advanced and eco-friendly, and the players in the industry focus a lot, increasingly more on sustainability and innovation in the past few years. And there's a lot of R&D in biodiversity and biotechnology as well. So now in Asia Pacific and Middle East regions, horticulture maybe it's not that advanced or it's not as big, but I believe they're definitely picking up. So in your opinion, Dennis, how do leading innovators, for example, Solar Technologies, ensure their lighting solutions remain adaptable or relevant in the future? When all these emerging markets in APAC and the Middle East pick up horticulture. Hello? Dennis, you need to unmute yourself.
Very interesting point there, Melvin. So, rightly observed, North America, Europe, they tend to be at the forefront of innovation and R&D. That is also because when it comes to lighting industry, you can see that a lot of leaders in this industry, the traditional lighting and the LED lighting industry, happen to be in the European region, and their crop patterns and the food consumption is slightly different from APAC and Middle East as well. So to start off with innovation and R&D that you pointed out, a lot of the companies that are developing new solutions or patents within the horticulture lighting, they go to market and then they're eventually bought off by these leading players in the traditional lighting space, because the traditional lighting is growing, but it's more of a plateaued growth. It's not a sine curve, a rocket curve that you see in lighting anymore now. It is a plateaued growth. So they're looking at alternate means to generate revenue. And horticulture lighting, just like how automotive lighting was present for a few places earlier, how architectural lighting played a few roles. Now, horticulture is again adding another stream of income for these companies. So most of these companies try and develop something new, and they are eventually bought off by these companies based out of Europe. And then coming back to companies, you talked about companies like Solam, how are they innovating, staying relevant? Solam, I think, is now almost 10 years, the company. So is companies like Agnetics and others. They start off by offering just a single solution or a product, a lighting product, which can cater to a particular set of growers in a country, let's say Canada. Number two, what they do is they analyze or they venture into the next closest market, let's say North America, and try and get footprint there. They partner with either educational institutions or agri-tech universities so that their products can be used to carry out researches in their facilities. So which means that they do it for no cost or a part of the cost. They also partake in any developments that happens in those findings. So Solam, for example, they have registered 17 patents and there are 34 patents still waiting for confirmation. So which means that the emphasis on research and development, partnering with research institutes, it's at an all-time high. You could also take the case for Agnetics. One of Agnetics' co-founder is the one who founded Color Kinetics, which eventually went on to become Philips, as we all know, or part of Philips. So, which means that there is a strong R&D culture, innovation culture that is underlying in these companies. They are not just looking at manufacturing products for a particular segment, but rather what are the customer pain points that could I address through my products is what they look at. And that is how they are able to expand their footprint and get more growers adopt their solutions.
Okay. So, do you think that besides Solum, obviously there are more homegrown companies in APAC region, for example, who can contribute to the horticulture industry?
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you repeat that?
Do you besides Solum, or companies like Solum, do you think there'll be more there'll be more APAC companies, Asia Pacific companies that are going to be contributing a lot to the horticulture industry, for lighting, obviously.
There is a very good prospect, but like I rightly said earlier, the key here is to identify the customer pain points in APAC and Middle East. At least in the Middle East, we know there are climatic conditions, etc. APAC is more of a traditional farming, comes from a traditional farming background, which means that they need to counter this myth or the perception that traditional farming is the only way ahead, and they need to ensure that there is more vertical farming adoption as well. Number two, most of the lighting products that have been in the market so far have been used to grow, let's say, leafy vegetables or flowers or cannabis, for example, mostly in North America. But there hasn't been more test cases or use cases with staple crops from APAC, let's say rice or wheat. How are they grown indoors? Is it feasible for me to do that cultivation indoors? Such use cases are not present for growers in the region for them to adopt this lighting solution. So I think going forward, there have been a few use cases. I believe it was one or two companies that they did it, but it was not adopted on a wide scale. Only when we start addressing that and suggesting farmers that, cultivating rice or paddy or wheat or even vegetables apart from the ones, let's say, tomatoes or lettuce or cabbages that are traditionally grown in the European region. If there are other vegetables, staple crops in Middle East, let's say Latin America, let's say underground veggies like potatoes or anything of that sort. Once there are more use cases, that's when I think people will start doing it. And lighting companies need to first set up those use cases, saying that these staple crops can be grown, and start going to the growers and to the market.
Okay, thanks for that, Dennis. So, related to the question I asked just now, this related to startups, right? So startups in horticultural lighting, they are really shaking things up, with pretty cool and clever ideas for the horticulture industry. So of course they are using a lot of things like AI to make sure plants get just the right amount of light, and importantly they're all about sustainability, coming up with energy efficient lighting and really smart ways to cut costs and and help horticulture players to reduce operations costs. So how do technologies and solutions from companies like Solum, Heliospectra, and Agnetics stand out in terms of competition against major lighting players? I would like to get your perspective from both of you. And moving forward, what are the new innovations that we can look forward from startups in the future? Who wants to go first?
So they
let me go with this. See, so basically all the innovations or the solutions which are available in the space today, I clearly see, I think one of the biggest problem, it is getting solved, which is the availability of a food, right? And I think we need to link it to the current scenario. We all are aware about the climatic conditions, right? The global warming, and it has a direct adverse impact on the food availability because of the plant growths, right? So I think if I may use this word called noble cause is being served with this technology is I think I will not be wrong if I say so. Second, the seasonality, because most of the times these plants are available only in a particular seasons, right? So with the new advanced innovations happening in this field, I do see this emerging trend. I think it's not emerging, it's already there. It will only grow now, is that we don't have to wait to eat a particular type of a food or a fruit for a particular month of a year, right? So that seasonality will definitely going to end using the advanced innovation which is available today. So these are 2 points which I clearly see is the immediate outcome of more and rapid usage of technology like lighting or integrated technology solutions like smart solutions for horticulture.
Just to add on to what they were saying, the seasonality and everything is really important. I also believe that companies must not only focus on the products and solutions, but rather focus on getting their products maximum reach through, like I pointed out earlier, through use cases or through scientific publications, ensuring that their lights are, the lights can perform better than the rest of them and others. The second one is we talked about the integration of HVAC earlier. How easily is my system or my lighting solution accessible or connectable to other building solutions within the vertical farms is another critical aspect. It should not be a siloed approach saying, okay, my lighting system will feature on its own. My lighting product will have its own dashboard, own platform, but syncing with a HVAC solution provider would become a tedious process for the grower. So lighting companies needs to think about that and ensure that interoperability, the point that you mentioned, not only with lighting systems, but also with other components within the vertical farm is important. Third one, hardware alone can't generate more services for you. How can lighting companies look at offering services that can ease growers, let's say, pain points? For example, if there is one cycle of growth, can the lighting companies provide an analytics of how the crop has grown over the years? How can it be reduced? How can the growth time be reduced? Can the lighting exposure to light be increased or decreased? All of these analytics, or as we call as a service, would play a very important role. And that will help companies generate additional revenue. And that is what traditional lighting companies are also doing through digital lighting services. They're not only looking at offering illumination-based services, but they're looking at occupancy metrics. They're looking at the product life cycle. They're saying, okay, is my light nearing its lifetime? Is it time to change it, or its light output has decreased? All of these factors are managed at the back end by the lighting companies, ensuring that the facility managers, or in this case, the growers, don't have to worry about the product. They just need to focus on what crop should I grow, how can I include or probably expand my farms, include more types of plants inside my vertical farm should be the only concern for growers, and not, let's say, how can the return on investment be affected by this, or can I have more additional information, or can I integrate it with a better ventilation system? All of this should be off the grower's mind, and that is where I think lighting companies should focus on as a future innovation.
I would like to add to this point.
Yeah, please. Please.
Ultimately, when we look at such kind of a systems or solutions, right, it boils down to at what cost it comes to me, and right, what are the benefits? Again, I'm referring to the ROI, because in all practical scenarios, if such system has to be adopted, ultimately we cannot ignore the ROI part, right? And most of the times, I personally have seen, not only in a context of horticulture, but in general, when the ROI is being looked in, it is only considered in silos. Okay, if I am implementing lighting controls And if I need to invest, let's say X dollars for this, what is the outcome from lighting controls and when I'm recovering that, right? I think we need to change the perspective, right? And we should look at holistically this investment, what are different areas, right, which are getting impacted positively, and all those areas has to be considered during my ROI. Point number one. Second, I think we should not consider the recovery from only from, let's say, the growth of the plant and then outcome of the plant, right? We also need to find out and come up with the different business models. I'm now talking in a context of the companies who are working in this space and about to come up with their solution, right? I think we need to look into or move away from the conventional way of going to market with our products. As Dennis rightly said, can we think of offering it as a service, right? Which is clubbed together with all other services. It could be a piece of information which is very critical for a grower to ensure that there's a right growth of a plant. So to sum up, my simple message is that ROI need to be looked into a perspective in a context rather than as an absolute number.
Right. I totally agree with what you said, Sudhir. And overall, I think the whole idea of new technologies, digital propositions, industry convergence, and so on, right? It all requires one common thing, and that's or one common strategy, which is business model. It cannot run on traditional way of doing business, and and it's basically just like that, because that's how the market works right now. You cannot sell solutions the same way as how legacy companies sell solutions in the past, because it doesn't work anymore with customers today. And I think it all boils down to effectiveness, the cost effectiveness, and operational efficiency, performance guarantee, and things like that. So it all comes to various business models and propositions. All right. So we are coming to almost the end of the discussion today. I think so far it has been very informative and fruitful discussion. And before we end the discussion, let's revisit the title of the webinar. And the title says, "What are the roles of top lighting innovators in advancing horticulture?" So my opinion or my summary would be these innovators, they help plants, or they help, horticulture players to grow plants better by optimizing light for overall health of crops. And they also focus on making, systems, lighting systems, energy efficient, which is great for the environment. And overall, I do believe, these lighting companies, they are also making indoor farming more efficient and eco-friendly in the long run. And I think this is definitely creating a greener future in the entire agricultural ecosystem. So to end this webinar, maybe both of you can, give your final thoughts on what are the roles of the top lighting innovators should be, in advancing horticulture.
Okay, so I'll go first. When it comes, we have discussed in length about products, solutions, what innovators offer, how can they try and sell more, etc. The underlying factor here is, I believe that innovators constantly push boundaries for others as well. So they set the benchmark higher for any of the new entrants or existing players. What that results is a competitive market that is better for the growers, which means that they'll have a slew of solutions to choose from, and only the best can survive there for a long time. We could see that from the acquisitions that are made. Legacy companies or big companies, they often keep a keen eye on who's innovating and what could be the ideal game changer in this space. So innovators constantly push that boundary, make the market competitive, ensuring that growers get good solutions, and at the end of the day, consumers are the ones who are going to be benefit from it. So constant innovation is going to only push this market further and further high, is what I believe.
I feel like there is a huge opportunity and also responsibility for innovators, specifically working in this domain of horticulture, right? Because it is only going to increase as the challenges are only going to grow because of various conditions around, right? So I think innovators are always challenges. And I can only stop by saying that there are enough opportunities available for all of us to keep innovating and solve this noble, rather provide a noble product or solution which to solve the big problem which is ahead us. That is scarcity of food. Thank you.
Right. So thank you, Sudhir, for your answer, and Dennis as well. I think we have come to the end of this panel discussion. So again, big thank you to Dennis for sharing your presentation and insights today. And a huge shout out to Sudhir Patil from InfoLeap Systems. I really appreciate your time and input. And to everyone tuning in, so best of luck. Catch you again next time in another Frost Sullivan Growth Webinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you and see you all later. Bye.